Hi, and welcome back. So far, I've been making some pretty bold claims about just how possible it is for you to achieve an awesome financial future. Well, I'm confident because everything we've been talking about is based on a secret weapon. That's right, it's time. You're about to meet the most powerful force in the entire financial universe. Are you ready? Our secret weapon is compound interest. I know. You might have heard something about this before, and it doesn't sound very powerful. But listen, it really is. It's so powerful, some people call it the empirical miracle. If you're going to get anywhere in building a strong financial future, it is a must that you understand and respect the strength of compounding. Let's see if I can convince you with this.
Here's a plain everyday checkerboard like you've seen a million times. 8 squares wide, 8 squares long for a total of 64 squares. I'm going to take a single penny and put it on the very first square. Then I'll double that and put 2 pennies on the second square. Then I'll double that and put 4 on the third square, then 8, 16, 32, and so on until I've got all 64 squares filled up. Got it? Okay, now go ahead and take a wild guess. How much money do you think is on that checkerboard? Go ahead and guess really high. I dare you. Well, no matter how high you guessed, I bet you're still too low because the value of that checkerboard is... I can't even read that. So let's just say it's well over $184 quadrillion, or the entire world's money supply 2,300 times over. I know it's hard to believe that we can go from just 1 penny to $184 quadrillion in just 64 squares, but it's true. That's the power of compounding, and I hope it got your attention. But there's something really important about the way that it built up, and I want to make sure that you notice it. You've got to be patient with compounding because it takes a while. It's the classic snowball effect. Back on the checkerboard, if you look at only the last 4 squares, you get a picture that looks like this. 94% of the money comes from just the last 4 squares. The other 60 squares combined only add up to 6% of the 184 quadrillion. So here's the point. All the real action in compounding happens towards the end. Compounding is sneaky. It starts out so slow that it almost lulls you to sleep. Then it picks up steam, and then pow! The really amazing numbers are all towards the end. Okay, I admit that doubling your money doesn't happen too often. So let's look at a more realistic example. It's called the 3 by 6 by 6 by 40 case study because it's 3 investors investing $6,000 a year at just 6% interest for 40 years. Let's call them A, B, and C. They're each 25 years old, so they'll meet to compare results when they're 65. The only difference between them is how long they're going to invest. A will invest $6,000 per year for 40 straight years. B will invest the same amount, but only for the first 20 years. And C will invest for only the last 20 years. It's pretty easy to tell that A is going to win, but stand by for some other surprises. Let's check in on them 40 years later. Here's A. Look at that. Congratulations, A. You're a millionaire on just $500 a month. Okay, how about B? B invested for only half as long as A, so maybe B will only have about half as much, right? No. B has ended up with $750,000. Think of that. Only half the time, only half the amount invested, but 3/4 of the result. Okay, what about C? C invested for 20 years, just like B, so maybe C's ended up in about the same place, right? Not even close. C has ended up with only $250,000. It doesn't seem right, does it? B and C invested for the exact same amount of time. The only difference between them was when they invested. Well, it is right, and it's pretty amazing, isn't it? Think of it this way. B got the clock ticking right away. Even though B stopped investing after 20 years, that money was still able to continue compounding for the next 20. But C made the mistake of waiting to start. C never got to experience compounding's later, more powerful phases. So let's close by summarizing 2 key points about compounding. First, compounding can work for you or against you. It works for you when you save and invest, just like we saw in our example with A, B, and C. But it works against you when you borrow. That's really why you want to save and invest as much as you can and borrow as little as you can. In fact, with the possible exception of a mortgage on a house, you want to get your borrowing to 0 and keep it there. Next, remember, compounding is insanely powerful, but it takes patience. So when it comes to saving, the key is to get the clock ticking early. Don't be discouraged when your initial returns seem really small. Just be patient. They'll eventually become huge. And when it comes to borrowing, don't be fooled by how small the beginning interest charges are. That's exactly how millions of people have gotten into serious trouble with credit card debt.
So, thank you for joining me for these videos. I hope that they've served you well and that you've learned something valuable.